Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I am Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And we're your hosts of the Jedi Enclave Presents the Now This Is Podcasting podcast, which is a weekly little project we do to talk about the Star Wars and the other things that we enjoy, like never the Star Trek. I can tell you that. Probably never the Star Trek. But also, I don't know, Game of Thrones. Not Doctor Who.
The MCU. Not
necessarily because we don't like Doctor Who. I just don't personally watch it. I heard it's woke now.
Oh no.
So we got a great show today. One that I'm sure everyone will agree on every single front. So first of all, there's Adam Driver news. He has shit to say about Kylo Ren. There's surprisingly more Nice Little Republic news. And our big segment today is the Star Wars The Last Jedi Retrospective, because yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of that movie coming out. And
doesn't yet make me feel old, because it feels like it's about a 6-year-old movie.
Yeah. And I kicked myself in the ass because there were like everyone was doing their 5-year retrospectives last year, and we just it didn't fall on a good day for us.
Well, too fucking bad. We're doing 6 years.
That's how we're doing it. And also it looks like Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon might be in a lot of trouble. But thanks for joining us. If you're watching and you're wanting if you're wanting to know where to go, if you don't want to listen to, any particular thing, there are time codes in the description that you can go check out.
But only if you're listening from the future on YouTube.
Yeah, you
if you're listening in the present, we can't help you. Yeah. Sorry. You'll have to watch in a linear fashion.
However, if you can just jump into the future right now, that would be kind of
First off, can you tell me how?
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Thanks to Connor at the Star Wars Hub and Star Wars Veritas. He's cool. We like him. Also, while you're here, if you could like and subscribe and make sure you share the stream. And join us on Discord.
Share it with that one cousin you have who really hates The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure. We'll get there. I've got lots to say. Frankie says, "What's up, Daniel and Chris?" What's up, Frankie?
Hello.
Which, by the way, this is a live show, so we'll, when it makes sense, we'll be responding to chats. And then after this, 7:00, Battlefront 2 with our boys from Gremlin Squad, and
the lads.
Yes, and then Sunday, tomorrow at 7 is the second part of our holiday special Gungans and Dragons episode, which is
where we are teaching the meaning of Life Day to Sheev Palpatine.
Yeah, and it's going
about as well as you'd expect.
It's going fantastically. I want to get started on this because I don't know how much time we're going to take, because we're going through all of The Last Jedi. Yeah. Like, imagine Star Wars story time, but on whatever, I don't know, on crack or whatever, or heroin. I don't know what drugs are.
I don't know. We gotta keep going.
Yeah. So Adam Driver had a great week, by the way. He was on SNL. He made this hilarious joke about how he didn't kill Han Solo. Woke did. It's like, oh my God. But anyway, he's had a great week, and
he's promoting his new movie Ferrari.
Right. And he's been all over the, the news and the press. And of course, anytime you go, if you've ever been anywhere tangentially related to Star Wars and you go do a press event for something else, they only ask you about Star Wars, which was the case on the Rich Eisen show. And he talked about the original plan for Kylo Ren, and how there was no redemption for Kylo Ren originally. And he said, I had an overall arc that I had in mind that J.J. Abrams wanted to do. His idea was that Kylo's journey was the opposite journey of Vader, where Vader starts the most confident and the most committed to the dark side. And then by the last movie, he's the most vulnerable and weak. He wanted to start with the opposite. This character was the most confused and vulnerable, and by the end of the 3 movies, he would be the most committed to the dark side. I tried to keep that arc in mind, regardless if that wound up being the journey anyway, because it changed while shooting, but I was still focused on that. And let me tell you, I would have vastly preferred this in general to what we got. And I was talking to my partner, John, a little bit about this today. Like, what point does a character become irredeemable? And for me, it was when he killed his father, when he killed Han Solo, because it's like, I get it. Maybe they shouldn't have redeemed Vader, because he did kill a room full of children. I totally get that. Like, there can be an argument there that maybe he shouldn't have been redeemed. That's fine. I think they should have killed Han Solo. I liked the fact that Kylo was the one that did it. However, he was a beloved character, everyone loves Han Solo, and you can't redeem the guy that kills Han Solo. He's the guy that killed Han Solo. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. And when we talk about our Last Jedi retrospective, they dial back the parent murder a little bit in the second film,
just a wee bit,
and it's because Kylo Ren or Ben Solo is a massive mama's boy. Is probably why. But this would have been better. It would have.
This is also still more proof that nobody at Disney had any plan for the sequel trilogy. Yeah, they just said, "Hey, J.J. Abrams, make a movie." Yeah. He's like, "Okay, here's some shit I threw against the wall."
Right. Yeah. Hope you enjoy it. So yeah, that would have been great. I would have loved it, but alas, we didn't get it. So I'm not going to bitch about it. I've moved on. I'm over it.
Just like we're moving on to this next story.
What a great fucking transition.
Thank you. So a week or two ago, we talked about the Knights of the Old Republic remake and how it's not happening, and then it is happening, and then who the fuck knows?
What is it this week?
Well, it's confusing because the Disney head of gaming...
It isn't not happening?
Sean Shoptaw had an interview with Axios where he said, quote, "Not a lot I can say at that point for some hopefully obvious reasons, but KOTOR is obviously an incredibly popular game, one that we are incredibly proud of and think there's still a lot of demand for," unquote. So, like, Disney at least knows there's money to be made here. And knowing Disney, where there's money to be made, they will follow.
Oh, they'll be there to suck on the teat of capitalism to get that money.
So, I think this is still happening eventually, maybe? But like we might have to go through like 2 or 3 more studios getting the project. Like it could be a long time. Is all I'm saying.
That's one of those things where it seemed like one of those. How can we word this answer so that it doesn't get us in trouble down the line? Yeah, it's like it's a great game.
We're so happy with the fans for their positive response.
Right. Yeah, and making this game would be a lot of fun.
It would be a dream come true.
Yes. Goodbye.
I'm going to leave now before you ask me any follow-up questions.
Yeah, and they're like, so are you making it or not?
Goodbye.
Thank you for asking. Goodbye. Oh man, I don't think we're ever going to see this game.
Let's talk about some not Star Wars.
Yeah. Also, I forgot. So there was a another Marvel What If Season 2 trailer.
Yes.
That I forgot to watch.
Okay.
Except for a couple of things that I saw like being talked about.
So the things that I remember are, first, this is very heavily Christmas themed, which, I mean, the last time we had a Marvel Christmas show was Hawkeye, which kicked ass.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I remember seeing a sequence of like a Black Panther in the midst of a giant melee battle. So that seems pretty cool.
They're doing a Die Hard in one of these, right?
I hope so. That sounds awesome.
I think one of the it's like someone takes over.
What if John McClane was Iron Man?
Well, no, something happens at like Avengers Tower, and they have to do a Die Hard or something, which I think would be hilariously fun. Yeah,
that'd be great.
But the thing that I saw that everyone's like, oh, that's really neat, is that they do a play on Loki's end of Loki season 2.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the tree Vijaycel he makes has Christmas lights on it.
Oh, that's great.
That's pretty cool.
Love it.
So yeah, when does that premiere again?
December 22nd for 9 straight nights. So I don't think we're gonna have time to do like every single. We might have to do just our favorite bits.
That's the night before watching Rebel Moon too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
speaking of,
Okay. So there's not a ton to say about Rebel Moon.
It has had its premiere in very select theaters,
right? And then it's dropping on streaming on the 21st, I think.
It turns out it might have been in very select theaters because the movie might not be that great.
The last time yesterday the Rotten Tomato score was 7%.
I looked it up right before
it's gone up a bit.
It is
I think
23% on critics, and 72% among audience.
Yeah. Which is not fantastic.
It's pretty abysmal.
Yeah. Now, and look, if you're at home saying, because this is what people like to say,
is Rebel Moon.
Well, not that. It's the thing I hear all the time is like, oh, well, it's the audience score that matters, because first of all, that's the one that's most easily the one that people can mess with. Yeah. And it's the one that shows that Last Jedi is a bad movie. To which I answer, oh, really? What's the audience score of the Marvels? It's very high. So fuck off. Like you can't have this cake and then eat this cake too, right? So you fucking pick whichever one you want. Like if it's the audience score that matters or not. I almost always go with the critic score because those guys,
they actually know about movies.
Yeah, it's the kind of their, it's their thing. It's what they do. I will say that the reviews I've seen have been like, obviously it's a majority
pretty negative.
Yeah, pretty negative. The one that I was like, was like something to the effect of, have you ever wondered what would happen if ChatGPT wrote a Star Wars movie?
No.
And I was like, oh my God. And then there was a post on social media that said, Rebel Moon Rotten Tomato scores is 9/11 for Snyder chuds.
I was going to ask, Daniel, as a professional Zack Snyder hater.
I don't hate Zack Snyder. I don't. In fact, so Zack Snyder did this movie that I enjoyed. It's like a zombie apocalypse thing. Yeah. It's not great. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason it's not great is because it happened like in the throes of COVID and they had to digitally take out a character that got canceled and put in Tig Notaro, who they just filmed in front of a green screen and just popped her into every scene. And so when she's talking to someone, she's not actually talking to anyone. She's talking to the air, and it still kind of works. Dave Bautista's in it. Like it's pretty okay. Like it's fine. It's funny, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have like the Justice League, and I know people who are like, the hashtag release the Snyder Cut.
Snyder Cut fixes everything.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Was it a ton better than Justice League? No, it wasn't. It was. No, it just wasn't better. It was bad, but just
was different. It was bad in a different way.
And there's this thing that Zack Snyder does I don't understand. That's like in this zombie thing. It was in a lot of the scenes in the Snyder Cut where like his visual identity is like smearing Vaseline all over the lens and making everything just real blurry. And I get it. Some people have their thing, and I think that might be his thing. But I don't hate Zack Snyder. Like I've been entertained by his stuff before. I did actually enjoy his version of Justice League a little bit better. It was not great. Mm-hmm. I hate Jared Leto so much that like I think that's what turned me off to that.
Okay, fair.
The thing that I cannot stand are the release the Snyder Cut guys, because we're going to talk about this when we get to our main segment today. There are people who make their entire identity hating The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. And it's sad, right? Because it's like, this is all you're capable of making your life to be. There are people who are the same way with not just Zack Snyder, specifically the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And I don't understand why, because the DC universe as a whole lately
has been bad.
Has been very, very bad. And there's Jesus, not just Zack Snyder. Jesus Christ could have come down from fucking heaven and tried to recut Justice League. Still would have sucked.
Wouldn't have been good.
Yeah. Which probably wouldn't have made sense because Jesus apparently was a carpenter and not a filmmaker. So what the fuck do I know? Well, let's move on, shall we?
I think we should.
We had a little misfire on the starting of our show today, so we're like already at 20 minutes, mm-hmm. which I'm like, oh God, oh no.
It's fine, don't worry about it.
Before we get going, Jimmy says, any thoughts on Rebel Moon? Haven't seen it yet. We're going to watch it on the 23rd, I think.
I'm keeping my expectations extremely low.
Well, also, it's fair to say that like all the shit I just said about all the tea I just spilled on Zack Snyder and shit, mm-hmm. I will give a fair shake to the movie. Like I'm not going to go into it wanting to hate it. Like I will give it a fair shake.
Like I'm expecting a mediocre movie, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Christmas themed Marvel show, bro. I'm looking forward to it. In fact, I didn't realize it's coming out so soon. Mm-hmm. I'm actually really excited about that. Okay. So, yesterday marked the 6-year anniversary of Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Good movie.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't matter what part of the argument you're on. I think the one thing everyone can agree on is that it was by far the Star Wars movie that made the biggest splash out of the sequel trilogy. And you might think that like the splash was bad or the splash was good.
It's different.
Yeah. And people have very strong opinions about it on both sides, right? And I, as a fan of the film, I try to be respectful to the opposing ideas, if they're good ideas and they're not just parroted from a YouTube video that they saw by Star Wars Theory. Which, by the way, when that movie came out, he put a video out that was like, "This movie is great." And then
he realized there was more views to be found and hating on it, and changed his tune.
Right. And all of a sudden it was, Kathleen Kennedy and Brie Larson are scissoring and it's going to destroy Star Wars or whatever the fuck.
I hope Brie Larson gets her own Star Wars movie. That'd be so great.
Yeah, just to see what happens.
Not just because, it would make the worst people in the world incredibly irate, but because Brie Larson's a good fucking actor.
I like Brie Larson, yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about we're going to go through the film. And I have this thing where, with the exception of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, I would write every other Star Wars movie differently in spots. There would be things I would change about it to make it a better story, in my opinion, which is what I'm going to do here as well as we go along.
Okay.
I've always had this version of The Last Jedi in my head that, like, if I were the one that was hired to write it, how I would have done it. Or like if they called me in to fix it or something, which would never happen because no one at Disney, despite everyone thinking that I'm a Disney shill,
no one at Disney knows who we are.
So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about the story, the impact that it had, things we liked about it, things we didn't like about it. And while you're here, I know it's a Last Jedi video, and I know that some of you are in the comments right now without even playing the video, just seeing the title of this video.
Oh, it's Last Jedi. I got time that I fucking hate the Last Jedi.
Frothing from the mouth and everything. And there's nothing that we're going to say here or by the end of this video that will change their mind. It was like I said earlier, there are people whose entire identity is telling people online about how they don't like The Last Jedi. And I get it. Like I'm sorry.
You just spent like 3 minutes talking about how Zack Snyder's stuff is kind of whack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not my entire identity, by the way. Yeah,
but because you're a healthy, well-adjusted individual.
And so, like, there's nothing we're going to say that's going to change people like that. And I'm not even going to try because you've got the emotional capacity of like a teaspoon. So, like, why would I try? But like, if you've got a good argument that you're not just parroting from, Mike Zero or Overlord DVD or some shit, put it in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. And check us out on Discord. We do weekly Star Wars video game streams and a live show like this every week. So check us out there. So I want to start before this film came out.
Okay.
So people's reception for The Force Awakens was kind of mixed, right?
I remember it being generally more positive than
I think it was like than The Last Jedi. Or like the reaction.
You're talking about Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
So like people were like, okay, this movie is pretty good. It's very competently put together. It kind of sucks that it's just rehashing episode 4.
Right.
But,
which is more or less the sentiment, right?
Yeah.
Which was, okay, it looks pretty, but did we need another Death Star? And and that's fine. Like
the characters are fun, but yes, did we need another Death Star?
The main thought was, let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
And as a result, everyone was fucking primed for this movie.
Huge expectations.
It was the most anticipated film of the year easily. And there was a moment where they started dropping trailers for it. And going back watching some of the trailers, noticed that they used some of John Williams' music from the big climax with Luke Skywalker at the end. That theme that I love. And I was like, that shit was in the trailers the whole time. Yeah. I had no idea. And there's this moment in one of the trailers where Luke says, he turns around, he says, it's time for the Jedi to end. And everyone was like, what the fuck? And then there was a shot where Rey uses the Force to grab Kylo's lightsaber, and
you're like,
turns it on, and all the Praetorian guards are like, "Oh God!" And like that's the shot in the trailer, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!" So like people are trying to figure out why Luke would say that it's time for the Jedi to end, and then there were
what the fuck does that title mean?
Yeah. On top of this, there were rumors about these giant CGI fights between Mark Hamill and the Knights of Ren, and like all this stuff that now we know were just made up, right? And so like people had, and then on top of that, there were folks like Star Wars Theory who were like, oh, well, I have a source that says,
I have a source at Lucasfilm, so blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Says fucking Daisy Ridley is going to.
Well, not so much anything about Daisy Ridley. I have a source at Disney that says this is how the story's going to go, which is actually just my fanfic. And when, which means that when that doesn't happen, people get really upset. Right. So like, trailers are coming out. People are getting really excited. I was shitting myself ready to see this movie. And then Carrie Fisher died.
Oh, God.
And everyone was like, how are they going to deal with this?
Yeah.
Because already the anticipation of the film was sky high. Carrie Fisher died, and everyone was like, if this is the only movie I ever see in my life, this will be the one, right? And we were all, John and I watched the official Star Wars making of documentary called The Director and the Jedi. And that had a lot of moments, like very touching moments for Carrie Fisher. And I think it kind of tore a hole in everyone's heart because we all wanted to know what's happening with the story and how the principal characters from the original trilogy were going to be used. And how do you do that when that actor is dead? And the fact that her passing was so tragic and unexpected, right? For those of you who were under a rock or whatever, she was on a flight back from somewhere and had a heart attack because she had her entire life was very open about her issues with addiction, was apparently clean before doing the films, and then kind of fell off the wagon, and as a result died. In addition to having a drug problem, wasn't a young woman anymore, right? She was a 70, late 60s, 70s. Someone correct me in the comments. Yeah. Using cocaine. That's hellishly dangerous. I mean, it's, so everyone was freaking out about that. So you and I were working for an orchestra then, and we took our entire staff out to see, staff and some friends out to see Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And I remember seeing that movie, and the film ends and our friends look at me waiting to hear what my opinion was. And I remember being like, I don't know. I really don't know. And I got up the next morning and went to go see it again. And then I walked out of there and I was like, okay, because I wasn't on sensory overload. Yeah. So I could focus on it the second time, right? Because shit's blowing up, lights are flashing, there's Luke Skywalker.
There's that one fucking scene where there's no sound for 15 seconds.
So you're right. So the first time I'm seeing this movie, I'm like, where do I look? Oh God, what's happening? And so the second time I focused on the story and I was like, okay. And then I went the next day and saw it again. And then after that, I saw it 4 more times. One of them was at the Navy Pier in Chicago in IMAX, which I'm so glad that I did, because let me tell you, any Star Wars movie in IMAX is fucking epic. It's an epic proportion that you do not understand until you see it. And in the middle of all these viewings, I started thinking about everything I know about Star Wars, which is a lot. Especially being a fan whose favorite character in all of Star Wars is Luke Skywalker. So in the middle of all this, thinking about that, and then going back and watching the original trilogy and thinking about what it meant to be a Jedi and what George Lucas's original idea of the Force and balance in the Force and the role of the Jedi and what the Jedi were, why they fell from where they fell and everything. And coming to this realization that, oh no, that Luke Skywalker is a real Last Jedi in this movie. He made it, right? He had this idea of what being a Jedi was, and he talks about it in the film. And finally, at the end, he realizes what being a Jedi is. And it's not about how fast you can wave around a lightsaber. It's, can you be a symbol of hope? And can you not, for fuck's sake, kill anyone while you're doing it? Right? Because that was Obi-Wan's...
Anakin.
Yeah, that was Ben Kenobi's first lesson to him, pretty much. The first... Ben Kenobi was very much a training on the job kind of Jedi, as we found out. One of the first things, other than here's a remote, it's going to shoot you a few times, hope you do well, here you go, was like, there are alternatives to fighting. That isn't what being a Jedi is.
Yeah. It's noteworthy, I think, as long as we're talking about this, the very first time we see Ben Kenobi, it's him like kind of stumbling down a cliff after having done a crate dragon call to scare away the sand people away from Luke. Like, if he wanted to, he could have killed all the sand people.
Yeah. No, easily.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't have been even like, it's like Anakin did that already. We don't. The Tuscans already hate the Jedi quite a bit. We don't need to keep this going on.
It might be poetry, but it doesn't need to rrhyme that hard.
Right. Yeah. Though he does go on to just chop a man's arm off, but still doesn't kill him.
Self-defense.
Yeah.
Self-defense.
Right. So
anyway, let's get back to the Last Jedi.
So that's how I came to Inner Peace about the Last Jedi, because to be honest with you, watching my childhood hero die was a huge shock to me, because it was like, he's my favorite character in all of everything. I mean, like, when you come from a shitty family and you have at least one half of your parental apparatus not teaching you good lessons, you kind of latch on to at least hopefully you latch onto a morality that kind of informs how to be a good person. And for me, that was Luke Skywalker. That's how I learned how to, I think, learn to be a good person. And so watching a movie where he dies, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. And I want to see him in the next movie. And also I was primed by the Legends material that I read as a kid, which now when I go back and read them as an adult, knowing how to write, like, these aren't amazing stories. Some of them are just shitty stories, right? Luke Skywalker as a character is all over the place in Legends. And so, like, kind of meditating on all these things, I just came to this spot where I was like, this is perfect. This is like, this makes total sense. And before we get into the story too much, I realized that there are people like, oh, well, Mark Hamill said that he hated this treatment of Luke and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you always quote the first part of that, never the second part, which is, but Ryan
explained it to me. We talked a whole bunch. And
even if that wasn't the case, why don't you go dig Alec Guinness up, bring him back to life, and ask him what he thought of Star Wars. He fucking hated it. So don't come at me about what Mark Hamill thought about. Mark Hamill and Luke Skywalker are not the same person, right?
It has always amused me that you had to do all this soul searching and repeated viewings to eventually decide what you felt about this movie. And I walked out of it that night saying, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing is, it was Luke dying at the end that really was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like that shaded the entire experience for me.
I think more than anything, what made The Last Jedi so good for me was that it was like, it's good on its own merits as a movie. It doesn't necessarily need to be within like Star Wars. Like it makes a lot of bold decisions. It has good storytelling. The pacing is maybe a little iffy in places, but like,
which is a common Star Wars problem, by the way.
If you're just evaluating it as a movie, it's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it doesn't hit all the Star Wars notes for a certain segment of the fan base, and that's whatever.
You're never going to do that anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
But if you're just approaching it as a movie, it's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think it's just, before we get into the story, I think it's rich that everyone coming off of The Force Awakens is like, oh, this is just a rehash of A New Hope. We need something different.
We need something new and different. And then you get something new and different. You're like, no, that's too different. Yeah. We need to go back.
Yeah. Give me another Death Star, please. I need my safety Death Star.
I need somebody to be somebody's father.
Yeah, exactly. Or grandfather.
Yeah, that works too.
So let's get into the story a little bit. I'm going to treat some of this like a Star Wars story time.
Okay.
I do have the Wikipedia open
just
for the
in
plot.
case.
I'm pretty sure I could probably go line for line from this film and just tell the entire story from memory. But just I want to make sure, because there are important things in each of the acts and in each of the big moments that swing people one way or another. And one of the big things is during this evacuation at the beginning. One of the things I love about this was that all the original trilogy movies and the prequel trilogy movies, all the films are separated by 2 or 3 years. Last Jedi takes place minutes, if not hours, or hours, if not minutes, after the attack on Starkiller Base. And the rebels get back home and they're like, we need to leave right now.
They know where we are. Yeah. They're coming with all of their ships.
Yeah.
We need to go.
We killed a lot of them, but we did not kill all of them. And they are coming here now. And that's how the movie opens. They're trying to evacuate the base and shit. And they show up, the First Order shows up and they're like, all right, who the fuck blew up our base?
Poe's like, hey guys.
Yeah, and this is one of the first big problems that some people had with the film, was that they put some pretty wacky humor at the beginning. Yeah. And I always thought it was like the joke about,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're coming in really fuzzy. Can you repeat?
Right. And Hux, your mother's a bitch, or whatever the fuck he says, right? I said that as we're going along, I have a version in my head that I've rewritten and everything. I would have had Poe, and maybe this would have shut some people up. My version of Poe would have flown out there just by himself and been like, I'm here to deliver an unconditional surrender from General Leia Organa. And everyone being like, what? And Hux being like, everyone wait. Hold on a second. Let's talk this through.
Well, let's hear this out.
And this being like, and then like they're like talking about it and everything. And then like someone's like, are those bombers? And they're like, oh shit. Okay.
Wait a minute.
And then that's how like the fight starts, right?
I don't know. I like it as is.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's none of the proposed corrections are me saying this is the part that sucks. It's just like in my mind, if I were to go and redo some of the stories, what I would have done. And they set up this thing in the beginning through this battle, because you meet Rose's sister.
Yep.
On the bomber, and she makes a really heroic sacrifice and dies. And one of the big they're like, oh, did you notice that how in Last Jedi that they have bombers that drop bombs that drop in space? And it's like, first of all, don't come at a fucking science nerd pretending like you know anything about science, because let me tell you something as big as that fucking Dreadnought class ship would have its own gravitational pull, and it would absolutely pull things toward it. So fuck off.
Number two, it's Star Wars. Science has never been a strong point.
You're talking about space wizards that can make your dick float with their mind, right? Or explosions in space, or the fact that when you shoot lasers, you don't actually see them,
or that they can travel faster than light and also like communicate faster than light across interstellar distances and still don't have Wikipedia.
Right. Or the internet.
Yeah.
It's right. It's like don't do the science thing. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So the big thing coming out of this is that Leia is trying to groom Poe for leadership.
Yeah, Leia's telling him, hey, don't press the attack. Poe's like, I'm going to press the attack. Leia's like, you shouldn't press the attack. He's like, I'm going to do it.
He's still a fucking moron.
And like half his people die.
Yeah.
Which leads to one of the best scenes in the entire movie, which just cold opens with Leia slapping the shit out of the face.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, fucking Carrie Fisher was not holding back. Like those were not stunt slaps.
Yeah.
She was slapping the shit out of Oscar Isaac.
They also did like 30 or 40 takes. Yeah. She smacked the shit out of him. And there's a line that she has where like Poe's like, we lost a lot of fucking heroes just now. And she's like, yeah, but no fucking leaders. Where are we at now? Right. And they lost their entire bomber squadron.
Yeah.
Which is like,
it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah. So thus starts the intimate part of this movie that I kind of like, which is ignore the stuff about them being tracked through hyperspace. I didn't know that wasn't a thing that was possible in the first place. So they're like, oh, that should be impossible. I was like, it is. It doesn't matter.
And you're the authority on how Star Wars works now?
Yeah. Well, no, Leia says that. Oh. No, Leia says that should be that's impossible. Which I was like, that's news to me. Okay. I didn't realize that. So the intimate part of this being that it's a cat and mouse game between Hux and Leia, or Ben and Kylo and Leia, right? And so they're chasing each other around, right? Now, so you might remember at the end of The Force Awakens, Finn gets his shit rocked, right? And loses part of his spine, I think, or something. Like
he just gets his ass kicked.
It's like that. You watch Gordon Ramsay like rip the spine out of a fucking fish. That's what Kylo Ren did to Finn. He's like, here's a lightsaber. Also, nice jacket, not anymore. So he gets patched up because Bacta can fix anything. And that's not a Last Jedi specific thing. That's on all Star Wars. You fucking someone fire a cannon at your chest, big hole in your chest, puts it back on it. You'll be fucking fine. He wakes up. First fucking words out of his mouth.
Where's Rey?
Not where are my clothes? Not oh my god, my dick's hanging out. Where's Rey? And Poe being like, damn, dude. I don't know.
Nice dick.
Yeah. And so we go straight to where we left off. At the end of The Force Awakens on Octo, which was filmed at Michael, Ireland, where Rey's like
holding up the lightsaber to Luke.
Here's a lightsaber, and he's like, "Fuck your lightsaber."
He takes it, he holds it for a second. Like there's a nice close up of his robot hand.
Yeah,
and he's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Now, people were pissed about this, and you know what? I kind of get it.
I think if it's your first viewing and that's your first scene seeing Luke fucking Skywalker in this movie, okay, like because you don't know, like you don't have the context,
right,
for everything that's going into that.
Yeah, and the fact that he's just so over, he's like, of course you would give me a fucking lightsaber, like you can tell. Like the entire time they're sitting there staring at each other and the music's like swelling. He's like, she better not give me a fucking lightsaber. And she's like, here's a lightsaber. And he's like, son of a bitch. Now I get it. It's, you might as well have the slide whistle when he throws it. Right. And I get that it felt a little stupid to me too. And like in my rewrite, I think we've talked about this before, just having him in resignation, dropping his arms to his side and just letting it fall to the ground. And then walking away, I think people generally would have liked that a lot more.
It's a different mood.
Yeah. Which I think fits the headspace of Luke anyway. Him just being kind of like, just fucking kill me already. Which is brings us to another thing where like people were expecting Luke to be the Captain America of Star Wars, being always positive, always ready to go. It's like he's on meth or something, always ready to go into action, never gives up, never surrenders. It's like you haven't been an adult yet. It's been
30 fucking years since Return of the Jedi.
I'm not as old as Luke was in this movie. And already
you get it.
I've had enough life where I'm like, I totally get like having a problem, feeling like you're the reason it's the problem, and being like, you need to not, like, you can't be a part of this anymore.
Or even just like sort of just withdrawing a little bit from the world and being like, okay, I'm okay with this.
I'm just going to go fish for a little bit.
Just, in my little bubble. Yeah. And someone comes in and says, hey, you need to fix this giant fucking problem. And you're like, fuck off. I'm retired.
Yeah. I have to go masturbate. That's like, that's my 12 o'clock appointment.
I have to go masturbate and then drink some green milk.
Yeah, like, sorry, I'm busy.
I got a full schedule.
Yeah, I'm booked solid. So, like, Rey is like, what the fuck, man?
What is going on?
Yeah, I don't get it.
And then Luke just does his best Yoda impression for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, just being crazy and weird. Yeah, but he, like, there's a moment where he figures out that they came on the Falcon, and he's like, wait a second. Where the fuck is Han Solo? Now they shot this deleted scene where we get a reaction from Luke to the news, because it just cuts away to something else, where he goes back into his hut, he closes the door, and he puts his hands on his table, and you can just see grief just wash over him, right? In the comic book adaptation, which is brilliant, Chewie crashes the door down. He's like, where's Han? And Rey's like, Kylo Ren murdered him. And before we realize that Luke has blocked himself off from the Force, he loses a moment of composure where he forgets he's juggling all this shit, and he forgets that he's not supposed to instinctually touch the Force, which is something that Luke Skywalker does. It's just a part of him, right? And he gets angry and shit starts floating in his hut, and Rey's like,
the fuck?
What is happening right now? And then he like calms himself down. He's like, yeah, I'm not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So there's some good Snoke Kylo stuff, right?
Oh, yes. A child in a mosque.
And it pretty much, this is a part of Kylo Ren's journey where he's like, you know what? I'm tired of having a dad. Like, I've already killed one of my dads, And Snoke is just another guy telling me what to do.
Also, Andy Serkis? Really?
Oh, yeah, it was good. Yeah. And the way, dude, I don't know what it is, but there's some anger that has been boiling with Snoke about that mask for like years. Because, when he says that, you're just a child in a mask, he's said to himself so many times, motherfucking mask, why does he wear it? Right. Yeah. And we know that because there are Kylo Ren comics where they go somewhere and Kylo's like, hold on, let me get my mask. And he smacks him. He's like, no, leave it here. Leave that at home. So, there's a whole thing where, you see something snap in Kylo where he's like, I'm going to kill that motherfucker. But you don't
like my mask.
Yeah. Right. Even though he destroys it.
Yeah.
But you can tell that there's
I think that's more of just like another childish tantrum.
Yeah.
He just has to smash something.
But it's also symbolism for that facade he's trying to cultivate. He's like, this doesn't matter anymore. Like there are bigger things.
And also sort of his kill the past.
Right. Yeah, his new religion in this movie. Yeah. So Luke gives Rey 3 lessons. Actually, it's 2 because the third is in a deleted scene.
Yes.
Which is
something that J.J. Abrams should have picked up on and said, okay, here's your third fucking lesson.
Right.
But
the third lesson, by the way, in the deleted scene is they're sharing the island with caretakers.
Mm-hmm.
And like they look over on another beach and like there's fire and shit. And Rey's like, what is happening over there? And he's like, oh yeah, once a month the male caretakers come in and rape and pillage. And Rey's like, are they doing that right now? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, we have to stop them. And he's like, I mean, okay, if you want. I have to masturbate. It's my 3:00 appointment. Yeah. Like, I'm busy.
I'm booked. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so she runs over there with her fucking lightsaber, busting like she's the hero. And they're not raping and pillaging. Every like once a month, the males come in from their fishing expedition or whatever, and they have a party. Yeah. Everyone's having a lot of fun. And
she's like, wait.
She gets there, and they're like, well, who the fuck is this bitch? And she's like, I will go back now.
Sorry.
And like Luke has a good laugh about it. And he's like, that's one of your lessons. Yeah. You don't have to save the fucking world every time. Like, that shit happens regardless of if you're there or not. Like, it doesn't matter that you're a fucking Jedi. That isn't your job. Right. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I played that joke on you. And the other two, there is this great history lesson that I fucking love in this movie where Luke is like, here's the deal about the galaxy. Sidious came along and fucked everybody. And here we are. And you know who let that happen? The Jedi. And here we are. The Jedi ruined everything. And I'm going to be the last Jedi. And when I die, no one will be fucking anything up anymore. And of course, Rey's like, you get that it's more complex than that. And he's like, I don't fucking care.
I'm old and bitter.
Yeah. And you can tell that he's really upset over his failure, and he's trying to pin it on he's trying to find excuses why he shouldn't be the hero anymore. And there is this brilliant scene that is elevated so much by Mark Hamill's acting where, and I've mentioned this maybe 200 or 300 times, where he talks about Kylo Ren and how he failed, how he was a master that failed his nephew. And Rey says, you didn't fail Kylo Ren, he failed you. And there's a shot of Luke as she's saying it where he's looking up at her, and you can tell that it's like one of those moments where hearing her say it, like,
he almost believes
he starts to like he needed to hear someone say it, and he's got this look on his face where it's just like he's almost on the brink of tears because he just hadn't allowed himself to even imagine that was true. And now that someone's saying it, he's like, maybe that is, like, maybe I'm not a totally irredeemable piece of shit here. Which, by the way, is one of the issues with this movie that some people have, which is the conflicting tale of Ben Solo at the Jedi Academy. Because there are 2 stories. There are 3. There's Luke and Ben, and then there's what happens, right? And Luke is like, I walked in to check on him, and he tried to kill me. Ben's version is, I was sleeping, he tried to kill me. The real thing, neither of them are relatable reliable narrators. What happened was, what had happened is, Luke went in there, because he had this sense that something terrible was happening already.
Mm-hmm.
And because he had his connection with the Force was, no one could understand it. No one could understand what he was seeing. He went in there, and just for a second, he saw what would happen up to this point. He had a premonition.
Mm-hmm.
And because this is who Luke has always been, he's always been impulsive. If you don't think so, you haven't seen the original trilogy. So in that one moment of I can fix it
all
right
this
now,
suffering,
takes out his lightsaber and then realizes that's your fucking nephew, you pleb.
mm-hmm.
And he decides not to do it. But Ben wakes up and is like,
holy fuck, you're going to kill me.
Right. And probably jumped the gun.
Yeah.
Right. Because he wasn't swinging. He just standing there like, oh, hold on a second.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we're done.
bitch.
Yeah, I needed an excuse. Here it is. Because he was already well on his way. Snoke
had been whispering in his ear for years.
The way I would have written this conflict, I would have had Snoke be someone everyone knew before we see what's happening in the story, and have him have the seduction of Ben be a little bit more out in plain sight, where people weren't realizing what was happening, and having Snoke tell him, I had a premonition.
Your uncle's going to try to kill you
in your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to wake up. You're going to look over your shoulder, and he's going to be standing there with a lightsaber, and he's going to kill you. And what you do with that information is up to you.
It's like, nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
No, Uncle Luke would never do that. Oh my God, he's trying to kill me.
Right. And having that be the thing.
Yeah.
And then the other lesson, Luke, of course, on the rock with the thing, which is
you feel the Force? No, it's me with a fucking stick, you idiot.
Which was great, a great moment.
Yeah.
This idea that you have access to this amazing power. It does not belong to you, and it doesn't belong to the Jedi. And it's a thing that he learns in his travels right after the last Return of the Jedi. He went and visited a bunch of primitive pre-hyperspace people, all of which have different names for the Force. Some of them were primitive enough where it was their deity. It was like their god. Yeah. And he realized this doesn't belong to the Jedi. This belongs to everyone. It's just we've been kidnapping kids the whole time. And like he comes to this realization that it doesn't belong to you. Like there's a balance, and it's like it exists with or without us. Not necessarily without us, because it has to have life, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
So we should probably talk about Canto, but
I don't like it. Yeah. And I get
what Rian Johnson's going for here. Like he's trying to make this grand statement about like, who does war benefit? Why does war happen? You know, like what did the upper strata of society do to keep the lower classes from, you know, subservient and all that? Right. Like a different movie that would have been really interesting things to explore.
There was just too much shit happening.
Yeah.
There was too much stuff happening. And it also it was like, is this a Harry Potter movie for like 20 minutes? Because it felt a little bit like a Harry Potter movie for 20 minutes.
They just run into
also,
DJ.
The fathiers creep me out because they have these big human eyes. And the first time I saw them, I was like, oh God. How do you think these are cute? Yeah. Right. And John loves the fathiers. I fucking get it. Right. Also, DJ is annoying. And I love Benicio del Toro. Yeah. That character is annoying.
Yeah.
He has his funny moments, and I get that they're like, we have to do Han Solo, but we have to make people think that he has a heart of gold, but
he's actually just an asshole.
Yeah, he's just an asshole, right? Mm-hmm. So that whole thing happens. How would I have written the Finn Rose thing? I don't even know, because I don't know. There's this other thing too where, and this is another thing.
Actually, before you go too far, we have in the past pondered the possibility of a Rey, Finn, Poe throuple.
Like sexually?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've talked about it.
Well, I wanted Poe and Finn to happen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Maybe Rey will just watch. I don't know.
What was the addition of Rose add to that dynamic, you think?
I don't know. Depends on how many sex slings are available, I suppose.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I like Rose as a character, by the way. Her kiss with Finn at the end was weird and contrived. I would have taken that out entirely. There needed to be no romantic connection there.
Yeah.
There's this thing that annoys people that I think could have been fixed with one line of dialogue, which was for Poe. Oh, so first, oh God, I have to get through this in a few minutes. Leia gets shot into the void of space and survives.
And like force swims her way back.
First of all, I think that Leia should have died in this film. And I maybe would have had her die here if I were rewriting it, or I've changed the order of events where Leia was the one that shot the ship through Snoke's ship.
Okay.
Her and 3PO on the fucking bridge. Right. She's got that moment where Poe realizes at the last minute what she's doing and she pushes him in, fucking presses the button, launches the ships. They go up there. 3PO would never leave Leia. Right. She sits in the chair, turns around, they're flipping switches. The fucking 3PO's over, whatever the fuck's over here is a thing. And they're like 3PO knows what's about to happen too. And he's like, oh shit. Oh God.
He's like, wait.
Yeah.
I just ran the calculations. Oh dear.
I'm here for it. Let's fucking do it. Fuck the Empire, right?
Yeah.
And having that be Carrie Fisher's send off. Just fucking hit the button, done.
Zoom.
Done. Just fucking like tears a hole through the ship, everything, right? And then have Vice Admiral Holdo be a character that returns in the next film. Because Laura Dern is amazing. She's an amazing actress, and I wish that we had had more of her. Now, the thing that people were kind of annoyed by was Poe and Holdo don't get along very well. No. And Holdo's like, I don't need to explain myself to you. I'm an admiral. You got our entire bomber squadron killed.
You just got demoted.
Yeah. So get the fuck out of I don't need to explain anything to you. I don't explain anything to her, and I'm fucking her. Like, there could have been one thing. Leia said something about a spy. I don't know who to trust. Get the fuck out of my face.
Okay.
And then everything else could have happened even, where he's like, well, maybe she's the spy, right?
Yeah.
And having that happen. A couple of things I want to hit before we're done. In the novelization, we've talked about this before. Luke had made the decision to leave Octo, and he was running back to Rey, practically screaming, "Let's go!" Walks in on them touching themselves through the Force, right? Like touching each other, and then explodes the thing.
Freaks the fuck out. Yeah.
Which, by the way, was a practical effect. That him blowing the hut apart with the Force.
Yeah.
Every single stone was on a string and they pulled the whole fucking thing out. Yeah, it's really cool. And then realizing, oh yeah, I'm the problem here. It's like I'm the part of this that is fucking everything up. So you go. And there's this scene where Rey gives him one last chance. She fucking hits him with her stick and he's like, oh bitch, please. And he pulls the antenna down and he just makes a fool of her because she's like, oh, I know how to fight. And he's like, no, I'm a Jedi master. And she pulls out the lightsaber and it surprises him, but then he doesn't care. And he just kind of falls over and he stops himself with the Force and he's like, there's nothing I can say to her. Like she's made up her mind. She's going to go make the same fucking mistakes I made. Why even try? And that's what ends up happening. Right. And so she goes back to Kylo because she wants to fuck him so hard. And you know what? I don't blame her because Adam Driver is sexy. And I know the high-rise pants were a little weird, but I would have been all over that. So they have an audience with Snoke. And
everything about this scene is brilliant.
Kylo's like, you know what?
Kylo's like, here, have her lightsaber. And Snoke is like, yes, excellent. I will now monologue for a few minutes. And, oh, God, I'm cutting that.
Yeah, I will. I'll explain everything as I'm seeing it. I'm the ultimate rule. And
he raises his lightsaber and strikes down his foe, and I'm dead. Oh, God.
And Kylo's like, fuck your fucked up face, and just kills him, right? And this is the music, he looks down, and he's like, what the fuck? And
his fucking torso just falls.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit later, but there's that moment where everyone in the room realizes what has happened, including Snoke, where he's like, okay, I guess I'm dead now.
Yeah.
And like Kylo pulls the lightsaber, and then Daisy comes up out of frame and catches it while she's still staring at him. Like, are we gonna fuck? Like, is this it? And
not quite, because they have to have this incredibly fucking awesome fight against the Praetorian
which was
Guard.
pretty much them with a wide angle lens doing just no fucking MCU cut. Like, you know how the MCU cuts their fight scenes to death and shit.
There are a couple cuts in this, but mostly
it's not a one take, but
just a lot of well-done stuff.
I know they're like, some people are like, oh, the one Praetorian Guard had the knife that disappeared.
Who fucking cares?
It's like, there are continuity errors in every film. If you don't think so, you're a fucking idiot.
Suspend your fucking disbelief. Have a little fun for once in your life.
That fight's cool. Now, that last finishing move, fucking Kylo turns the lightsaber on, turns it off, and he's like, now we can fuck, right? So she figures out that, you know,
wait a minute, he still likes the dark side.
Right. And she's like, okay.
He likes the dark side more than he likes me.
Right.
Which is kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But.
And they introduced an idea that they should have held on to, which was your parents were drunks. They sold you into slavery for drinking money.
You're nobody from nothing, but not to me.
Which was a beautiful line.
Yes.
And she's just like, I don't know what to do. So, and he's like, well, I want the lightsaber. And she's like, you can't have it. And so they have a little fight over it, and it explodes. She escapes, and everything comes to, we have the holdo maneuver and shit.
Yep. Holdo maneuver. Like, if that did not win awards for cinematography that year, it should have.
Yeah.
Just that scene was fucking brilliant.
Everything culminates on Crate, right? They have their little ski battle and everything. And one of my top 3 favorite moments in all of Star Wars, music cue, look up, there's a hooded shadow in the doorway, and it's Leia's looking up, and she's like, that's fucking Luke. And he comes over, he has, through the lens of Carrie Fisher, has died, one of the most heartbreaking conversations ever, where he's like, look, I know I fucked your son up, I gotta kill him. I'm sorry. And she's like, I get it. He's an asshole. He should probably go do that. And
go get him, boss.
Right. And she's like, I've held out hope for so long, but I know my son's gone. And he looks at her. He says, no one's ever truly gone. And you wonder if he's talking about fucking Carrie Fisher. And it's like a beautiful moment, right? And then
fucking 3PO.
Yeah. Well, before that, he kisses her on the head, and they do this masterful, like, if you were looking for the clues, you know what's happening. He kisses her on the head, and she looks at him like, what the fuck is happening? Go and watch it. I'm serious. Yeah. Like, she looks at him like,
what?
Yeah. And then he walks away. No one gets it because they're having a moment and everything. Yeah. The wink to 3PO is perfect. The cinematography here, there's a big gaping hole in the door and shit. Everything's on fire. He's walking through the base. Everyone's like, is that Luke Skywalker?
Luke fucking Skywalker.
And he's like, hey guys. And he walks out. Fucking
no time for autographs.
Yeah, sorry, I gotta go do it.
Because I secretly can't hold the pen. But anyway.
Right, yeah. Don't worry about why. Walks out, fucking, I don't know, 8 these giant fucking walkers and a bunch of smaller walkers and shit. And he just walks out there and he's like, what's up, motherfuckers?
Kylo's like, you will take every gun you have.
Yes, please.
You will point them at that man.
Yeah.
And you will shoot until he is dead. Unless you think I'm misspeaking.
Yeah.
You might have heard shoot most of our guns at him for a while.
What I meant
was every gun we have
until I tell you to stop. Yeah.
Until he is dead.
Yeah. And they do it. And it's one of those moments where, because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like sitting there the first time, you know, the dust settles. Luke Skywalker is still standing there. He's fucking Luke Skywalker. Like, you know, that's going to happen. But seeing it happen, I'm shitting my pants the first time I saw it. Every time I saw this in theaters.
This is the Luke that everybody wanted to see.
The theater of it, escaping a fate that no one should escape. Yeah. Him being able to do it because he's Luke Skywalker. And Kyle's like, okay, take me down there. I'll take care of this.
I will shoot him with my laser sword now.
And they have their little thing, and he has some cool moves too, which I like. There's this moment where Kylo swings at him. He does this like it's an unnatural movement,
a limbo thing.
Yeah, and it's like, you know that he's using the Force, and and then Rey's back and everything's happening. But there's a realization where Luke's like, okay, they're gonna get away now. Like time for the curtain to come down, right? And he's like, I'm not really here. And Kylo's like, the fuck are you talking about? And tries to poke him. And this is
just like
that. And this is where fucking scene changes. Luke's levitating 3 or 4 feet off the fucking rock, and he's like glowing and shit. And they're like, William scores it with this like religious choral, like men's choir and shit. And you're like, there's Luke. That's the Luke Skywalker everyone wants. You just didn't fucking realize it. Like, this dude is convincing an entire army from across the fucking galaxy from a place no one knew existed. Everyone, including a droid, looked at that motherfucker and was like, that's a real person.
That's a real person. And nope.
Stopped an entire army in his tracks, let the good guys escape, didn't have to kill his nephew, and then at the end was like, fuck off, and then just disappears.
I'm done.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah. And it makes a promise that should have been kept. See you around, kid. That's something that should have come back later. And that's the end of, and he falls over, and he looks up, and he's like, I guess, there are twin sons here. That's fucking poetic.
Yeah.
See y'all bitches later. And he fucking disappears. In the novelization, the caretakers collect his lightsaber and robe, and they put it away for later. This is before Rise of Skywalker happened, so they never went with that. But like, there was going to be something there. I also want to mention too, before we go on, or before we go to Battlefront, the Yoda thing was insane.
Especially as teachers who have been students of teachers, it's such a wonderful scene where Yoda basically says, hey, like, the whole point of teaching is that your students eventually get better than you. Yeah. So like, let her get better than you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's the burden of teachers, is that you have to have the ego of your craft, but then you have to watch someone younger than you be better at it. But then that's how you know you're an amazing teacher, which is a feeling I feel all the time as a saxophone teacher. It's like, how I was never that good at your age. If imagine what I could have done with your fucking talent, right? And also the other promise that was made there that I think that they were setting up was that Force Ghost Yoda could affect the corporeal world,
because he calls out a fucking bolt of lightning to take out the tree.
He hits Luke in the head with his thing. Like, he has an effect on the real world, and I'm pretty sure that shit was going to come back, because we saw Colin Trevorrow's treatment of the third film in the sequel trilogy, where Luke catches Kylo Ren's lightsaber. His Force Ghost catches the lightsaber and is like, calm the fuck down, right? Anyway, we've got to be done. I kind of went off screen a little bit.
That's fine.
My apologies. Zachary says, hey fellas, what's up?
Hello.
Race fan says hi. Hey, what's up? The Last Jedi is my favorite of the new movies, mine too, and probably the closest thing we'll get to Lucas would have done with sequel trilogy. Agree.
I don't know about that, but maybe.
He had some weird ideas about, Curly Tube, the only good scene of The Last Jedi was opening space battle. I like that, but it wasn't the only good one. Plus, the trilogy had so much potential, but The Last Jedi screwed it up. Hard disagree. Tony says, greetings, gentlemen.
Hello.
If you notice, Luke lied by omission by not mentioning he had his lightsaber. Yeah, it's because he wasn't a reliable narrator. Yeah. Neither was Ben. Both of them are traumatized
by the fucking night that Uncle Luke almost killed Ben Solo.
Yeah, they were both also eternally ashamed by how they handled it. That's the tragedy of it, right? Anyway, we're going to go play some Battlefront. Come join us. We'll talk some more about The Last Jedi or whatever the fuck else. Hope to see you guys there. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.